Hello, I'm Sheila Martel, and I'd like to welcome you to Dreams and Dollars, where we talk about dreams that do come true. Our guest today is Lew Myers, president of Right at Home, with offices in Montgomery County and Prince George's County, Maryland. It's great to see you, Lew.
Well, it's great to see you too, Sheila. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. So we're going to start your show with the same question we ask all of our guests on Dreams and Dollars. Tell us why you love what you do and how you're marrying your passion with your prosperity.
Oh gosh, Sheila, I have the greatest job in the world.
Really?
I really do. I get to help people that are aging. I get to help them stay at home for as long as they'd want to.
Stay at home as long as they want to.
Yep.
And the company is Stay at Home.
The company is Right at Home.
Oh, Right at Home, Right at Home.
Right
okay.
at Home.
Okay.
So what we do is we provide caregivers, folks that can help folks out with the activities of daily living. And it can help them as they age stay at home where they're really comfortable, where they can maintain their dignity. And at the same time, their children, their adult children, know that their parents are being well taken care of.
So it's literally right at home.
It's literally right at home.
That's where the service
That's the
is
whole
being
idea.
provided. That's wonderful. So how did you get into this? Like, why did you get into this field? Were you always in this business?
You know, I wasn't. I've always been in the healthcare business. That's what my background is. And I was, you know, probably a typical middle-aged guy in corporate America. Unfortunately, or actually fortunately now, I got laid off twice within a 5-year span, and I said, you know, that's enough of this. So I think I'm going to go try and start my own business.
That's interesting because several of our guests on the show had a similar theme where they had a buyout or they had a situation change, and they got to do something that they really always wanted to do or always thought about doing. So did you have any family experiences that led you to this? Anything that you remember or saw?
It was a very interesting process in terms of me. I actually purchased the business from the previous owner. He started it back in 2004. And at the time, I had kind of come to the decision that I wasn't going to go back to corporate America. This opportunity arose. And I hadn't really decided what direction I wanted to go in. But it really brought to mind, as this opportunity presented itself, it reminded me of the situation I went through with my grandfather.
With your grandfather?
With my grandfather. This was about 20 years ago. And there really wasn't any type of a service that we provide to help folks stay at their home. And as he was getting older, he had a, I'll call it a crisis, and that'll probably be a theme, of what we'll talk about. He had been very spry and up and around, and he got a bad infection.
Really?
And he was in the hospital for a period of time. They got it under control, but he had to go to a nursing home. And all he really wanted to do was go home. And that's what he said. He said, I just want to go home. Unfortunately, in those days, they didn't really have the support for a person that you might need in your home like they do now. And so he had to go in the nursing home, and unfortunately, he only lasted a couple days.
Really?
But, I really started to think about that in terms of this business. And it's to me, it's just a great opportunity to, provide that service to people so that they can stay where they want to be.
So is your client the actual aging person, or is it like maybe their son or daughter, family? Like, who is your actual client, or is it both?
That's a wonderful question, and I would have to say it's both.
Okay.
And it's really, as I bought the business back in September, and I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. But what I've found as I've gone through this learning process is that it's really the two are tied together. The aging adult along with their adult child, because everybody really has to understand what the needs are of that aging adult, as well as what the needs are of that adult child, because most of the time the adult child is going to be the primary caregiver, and that can be such a burden. And so that's another reason I'm so passionate about this. Is we can improve that adult-child relationship with their aging parent just by providing our service.
And so how would somebody find out about your business? Because that would be my question.
Ironically, the way most people find out about our service is when a crisis occurs. And that crisis, it could be falling down and breaking a hip, it could be a heart attack, but all of a sudden, you know, mom or dad aren't doing as well as they used to do. So now they're talking to somebody at the hospital or somebody at the rehab or somebody at the skilled nurse facility. You know, all of a sudden mom or dad's coming home. What do I do now? I have to, you know, I have to go to work. I have to take care of my family. So then someone at one of those different facilities would point them in our direction and say, well, we do have there are a couple of options, but one of your options is you could get a caregiver. In our parlance, it would be either a companion. A companion would not provide assistance with personal care, but they'd be someone to be vigilant with the adult, someone to provide companionship, maybe help a little bit around the house. But more often, it would be a certified nursing assistant. And that certified nursing assistant is actually trained, licensed in the state of Maryland, and they would be there. That's what we would provide to help out with the aging adult that needs that help after they've come out of this crisis.
Do you ever have instances where a family might want this service where the person has not yet gone into crisis? We
do, and that's happening more often than it used to. I think while we're not there yet, there's a much better education going on right now in terms of what services are available, what kind of planning can be done. You know, folks now aren't just kind of grinning and bearing it. They're looking at options. I think, you know, it's funny, November was Caregiver Month.
Okay.
And I have a whole bunch of caregivers that work with me.
I bet.
But that's not the caregiver they were referring to. They were referring to the adult children that are taking care of their parents.
I see.
And
that's a word used in families.
It's a word used in families. Who's the caregiver? And frequently, one of the family members needs to make quite a lot of sacrifice to be able to provide that care for their aging parent.
I think it's a tremendous amount of stress too.
Oh, it's a huge amount of stress. I mean, if you think about it, it's like you're caring for two families. Because unfortunately, usually it's mom who's taking care of the aging adult, and meanwhile, mom's got her own children she needs to take care of, maybe a job. So yes, it's an incredible amount of stress, and all of a sudden the relationship between the child and the parent is different, because now the parent becomes the child and the child becomes the parent. And that's a lot of stress, and that's a change in the dynamic of the relationship.
Absolutely.
And it's almost a forced change.
It is a forced change, isn't it? People don't really necessarily probably have time to adjust.
Right, right.
Do most people tend to come to you in crisis?
Absolutely.
Like 80%, or like what would you?
I would say 80% of people come in crisis, and they're getting, you know, they're reaching out and they're grabbing for information from anyone they can get it from. And unfortunately, that doesn't really allow you, when you're trying to make that decision at the last minute like that, it doesn't allow you maybe to find the best option or the greatest option. Don't get me wrong, everybody has a good heart and everybody has good intentions.
Of course.
But if you're like me, you want to know all the facts, you want to know all the information ahead of time, you want to plan, and you want to be ready for it. Unfortunately, most people aren't ready for it.
Do you get a situation like somebody will call you on a Wednesday and the parent's coming home from the hospital like Friday?
Oh my gosh.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So you have to get someone in 48 hours?
We do, and you know, fortunately, I have a great team of folks that are ready to do that, ready to jump through hoops, ready to do whatever we need to do to make that happen. You know, unfortunately, gosh, that's a lot of stress on the family. A lot of stress on the family.
What would you recommend for, like, how would a family go about getting a plan in place before the crisis happens?
Well, there are, you know, lots of wonderful solutions for that. You can work with your estate planner. Sometimes that's a lawyer. There are geriatric case managers out there. There are life counselors out there, and really. You know, those are the professionals that can help you out. But realistically, the best thing that you can do is just start having a conversation with your parents. Help them understand and get to the place where they see that it's inevitable that that's going to occur, where they're going to need some extra help. And then start that dialogue going so that you get on the same page and you start communicating, and then you can start to plan, because that's the biggest thing that we run into. In fact, I have a great story. We had a caregiver just the other day. One of our CNAs showed up at a gentleman's house to start taking care of him. And you know, the daughter had said, we're all good. He's ready for you to show up.
Good to go.
Already, you know, they had met with the caregiver. Even Dad had met with the caregiver. Caregiver shows up, knocks on the door. Dad looks at her and says, just go home. I don't need you.
Oh.
And so it's just, yeah, I mean, it's that communication is just so important.
So had he changed his mind?
He had changed his mind. Of course, we get on the phone with the daughter and, you know, yes, we still need you. I have to work. I really can't be there. So eventually we worked through it. But, yeah, it's, you know, that's really the biggest thing that happens is you really got to be on the same page and you've really got to be communicating.
So would you suggest that sometimes for families it may be more than one conversation?
Oh, absolutely.
It's not like you're going to sit down and settle this. It may be just suggesting and then going a little more in depth and then et cetera. And I think it would be important for the siblings to be on the same page.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because
very important for the siblings to be on the same page. Because the one topic we haven't talked about is money. I mean, you know,
of course,
one sibling is looking at it and saying, you know, Mom and Dad, we need to do this. You know, I have to go to work. Another sibling's looking at it and saying, oh my gosh, what's happening to my inheritance? You've got another sibling that's saying, well, they seem to be in pretty good shape the last time I saw them. Why do we need to do this? So
they may
everybody
not
has to
necessarily
talk. That's right. They may not agree, and they need to get to a place where they can agree.
Absolutely.
So.
Okay. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back after this public service announcement.
Thanks. You believe this guy?
Are you trying to start a wildfire?
Sorry. Pass the honey?
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
Are you getting this, honey?
Oh, prime time. We are rolling.
All right, Mama's gonna bring it home. Mama's gonna bring it home. Okay.
Come on, watch this guy.
Oh, backwards!
Oh, don't. Oh.
It went into Bob and Carol's yard. Oh, no? Okay, here it comes.
Oh, Mom!
Challenge your kids to be active and eat healthy.
All right, let's see what you can do. Let's go.
They might surprise you.
Let's go.
Search We Can for more ideas on how you and your kids can get healthy together.
Hey, you going out like that?
Yeah, why?
Well, what would the neighbors think?
I see you! Come look at Mr. Feather. Look what I have. Mr. Bird, remember? Bark, bark, bark. We're just playing. We're just playing on trying to get you out of here.
Even still.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
Now, before the break, Lou, you mentioned families, money, that whole dynamic. I think something I would be concerned as a baby boomer myself, if I were to hire a caregiving service for my parents, how do I know that the people are definitely going to come? How do I know that they, you know, I hate to use the word, but that it's not a scam or that, you know, I would just be concerned about that part of it. So how do you address that with your clients?
You know, it's one of the things that really attracted me to Right at Home. There are a couple of us out there in the business. I'm not going to mention any of my competitors, but we're all really excellent in terms of making sure that you have someone that you can trust that's going to be taking care of your parent. And that's something that, again, I'm very passionate about, because there are really two different ways of obtaining a caregiver for your parent. You can go out and you can independently interview people, hire them. They actually become your employee, so then you become responsible for them. Or you can hire someone like us where they're our employees and we do all that work for you. So we'll run a background check. We will look at their driving history. We'll insure them. We'll make sure that they're bonded. We'll make sure that their licenses are up to date. As a certified nursing assistant, they're required to be licensed by the state of Maryland. And then they go through an extensive screening process before we'll bring them on board and before we'll hire them. But probably the most important thing of all is we have employees that make sure that the right caregiver is matched up for the client that they're going to be taking care of.
And how would they do that? Like, is it a questionnaire? What's that process?
You know, we go through a rather exhaustive assessment with the client before we even send anybody out there to the home. And then we figure out, do they want somebody that is kind of a bubbly personality?
Oh, okay.
Does the client need someone who drives? Do they like to go out and have lunch with their friends? And do they have pets? How much help do they need around the house? Are they a bigger person that might need a male caregiver possibly, something of that nature? So we really go through an extensive evaluation process to understand the client and make sure that we're providing the right caregiver. But, you know, more importantly, though, is I think that you really need to have a level of trust that someone that you're going to bring into your parents' home is somebody that you're going to be able to rely on.
I think that that's such an important point, because if you can't do it yourself, you really would want to feel that your parents getting the care that you would give if you were available or able. So there is a trust there, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, that's why it's funny in my 5 months that I've owned the Right at Home. What I've found is that it's really important to be actively supervising the caregivers and making sure that your clients are getting what they need. So we call the clients and we talk to them all the time. We make sure that
you monitor.
We monitor them, absolutely. So it's you know, I just think that the quality of service that you receive for your parents is much better this way. So
you bring a lot of integrity to the work. Obviously, you really care.
We really do. We really do. And it's funny, you know, at first, I was a little nervous about making sure that we had the right caregivers at people's homes. But what we find is that as we have that communication process, and it's actually a three-way communication. You've got the adult child, you've got the client, who's the parent, and then you have someone who works for me at Right at Home.
Okay.
And that person is in communication with both on an ongoing basis. And what tends to happen is, even if there is a caregiver that might not be the best caregiver that they could have, the family works with you to try and make sure we get the right caregiver in to take care of the aging adult.
Because they want the situation to be handled properly.
They do, and they're very patient, and they know we're all working together to try and make sure we have the right caregiver. And then once you get that right match, it's the stories. Oh my goodness!
I was just going to ask you for success stories and people that are happy, or like, what's the satisfaction you get out of it?
Oh my goodness! When you get a call and somebody says, "Oh, we're so happy with Angeline. She took Mom to the grocery store the other day, and then they went out to lunch in Bethesda," and or even more rewarding when one of our clients passes, and unfortunately that's part of the scenario, the reality of it.
Of course.
And you'll get a note from the family, and our caregiver will, they'll go to the funeral, and we'll get a note back from the family, and our staffing coordinator will go to the funeral as well. And I mean, you really just develop that relationship, and you celebrate the life of the person who's passed on. So it's extremely rewarding.
And a wonderful resource to the family. To feel good about that.
We'd like to think so. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you said about celebration, that leads me to another question, and that is, talk a little bit about how you think the third stage of life, if we want to call it that, the third chapter, the elderly chapter, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
How can that be celebrated? Do you think in our modern American society we're doing the best we can with that chapter? Like, give me a little bit of your feedback just generally on the status of sort of the senior situation.
Yeah, it's actually another topic I'm very passionate about. It's really, you mentioned the third chapter, and it really is. It's that last third of life when really we've worked really hard the first two chapters in our life. I mean, sure, we enjoy ourselves, raising a family. That's all very fulfilling. But that third chapter is really the chance to kind of hopefully throttle back, relax, enjoy the things that maybe you've put off for that time. And it, sharing my opinion a little bit, it feels like maybe we don't celebrate older folks in our society as well as we could. I mean, I always like to point to the Japanese society where the elderly are actually venerated and held in very high esteem. And I'm not sure we tend to include them as much as we probably should in our society. I'll point to one of my son's friends is one of my favorite examples. In his household, they've got the parents that live there, then they have the children, and then they have the children's children. And the interaction between the three levels, especially with the grandparents and the children, when they get to spend time together on a daily basis, the relationships there and the stories that are passed down and the history of the family, I mean, to me, that's just priceless.
I would definitely think so. I think sometimes in our society, even if it's not a model that the family wants to live together, there is some intergenerational contact. And when I was a teacher, I remember having some students who really weren't able to talk to anybody who wasn't their peer. Forget about seniors; they really couldn't even talk to like adults. And so I think we do need to do some work on an intergenerational level to have the generations all speaking to each other, respecting each other, learning from each other. And I think that your work probably, you get that opportunity. Like, what are the ages of your caregivers? That's something I'd be curious about.
So I would say that it's really all over the board. I mean, we have caregivers that are 23, 24 years old, and I think our oldest caregiver right now is 78.
Wow.
78. And what we find is that with the older caregivers, they're really in it. They're really in it for the right reason. I mean, they're trying to give back. They're trying to and make a little money, of course,
of course, supplement.
But really, really trying to give back and help some of their peers out. So that's something we try to foster quite a bit.
And are there any aspects of the job you like better than others? Like, I'm sure there's the admin, there's the promotion, the marketing, the supervising the caregivers. Like, for you personally as an entrepreneur and business owner, do you like all of it? Do you run out to different sites? Like, what does a typical day look like for you?
I have to tell you, it's really interesting that you say that, because the thing that I like most about being an entrepreneur and running my own business is that I don't have to tell you that any one of those things is my favorite.
Okay.
I get to do all of those things. So,
a lot of variety.
A lot of variety. I mean, today I was out visiting with customers. Yesterday I was in the office working on redesigning one of the processes we use in hiring and training people. I'm an accountant by trade, so I like to do the bank reconciliations.
Of course.
So, I mean, that's one of the things I really love about this is I get to do whatever I want to. And if I don't want to do it, guess what? I can ask somebody else to do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So cognitively, it's attractive.
Oh yeah,
that you get to use.
Very much so.
And the brain loves novelty and variety.
Yes, it does.
And so it's so nice. Don't you think it's nice not to have the same grind every day?
It's funny, it's really funny you mention that, but because if you think about most people's jobs, it's the same thing every day, every day, every day. And corporate America wants everybody to move up kind of in the same.
Like linear.
Linear, right, linearly, instead of doing multiple, multiple different jobs. But, I mean, my gosh, what's more fun than doing multiple different jobs?
Absolutely. Just see different experiences. And also people can discover talents that they didn't know. Like, have you discovered anything about yourself that you didn't know?
You know, I would say the one thing I've discovered is I'm probably a better salesperson than I ever thought I could be. And not in the typical salesperson way you think about. In our business, really, we don't sell. We just ask questions and try and understand what people need. And then that way we can provide the best service possible to take care of their aging relative.
So it's a collaborative model.
It really is.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. That's really so interesting. Thank you, Lew, for sharing such valuable information about the joys and challenges of seniors who wish to age in place. Thank you for joining us on Dreams and Dollars. I am your producer and host, Sheila Martel. Please tune in next time for another inspiring episode of Dreams and Dollars.